All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Cryptid Warfare. This is your boy, Z Baby.
Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Drewski and Conspiracies. Guys, we got a awesome show tonight. We got the legendary, the man, the myth, the legend, Tony Rodriguez. Yeah, this guy's got an epic story. This guy's full of knowledge. He's a good friend of Jessica's, our friend. You guys know who she is, Jess. Yeah, the cryptid huntress, Jessica Jones. Yeah, I first heard Tony on the Tony Merkel podcast, aka the Confessionals. Yeah, so I'm gonna TR Tony Rodriguez had a Tesla guy and just wealth full of knowledge. I'm not even gonna blow it for you guys. You will find out. But anyways, I just want to give a shout out to well, it's gonna be like my son's birthday here in about 5 days. Give him happy birthday, and then our friend, my friend Jasmine, who I work with, it's her birthday tonight. So happy birthday, Jazz! Everyone
Happy
else,
birthday, Jazz.
appreciate you guys hanging out, and our good friends in India, Jaya and Hannah. I see they're going to be tuning in, so that's good stuff. You're going to be listening to the podcast. Holla holla all the way out in India. Yeah, that's all I got. Z, what about you, buddy? Anything coming up? Good to go? Good?
Nope, I
Chess?
sound pretty lame compared to what you had to say.
All right, guys. We're just going to stop jabbering. We're just going to get right into it. May I introduce you guys to Tony Rodriguez?
Hi,
Hello, big
guys.
dog.
Thank, Thanks for having me. I don't know. You talked me up a little bit there, like legendary. I don't know, but thanks. It's great to be
Mythifying.
here. You guys are fun already, and I'm just happy to be here. Whatever. Back in 2015, right? So I got a bunch of memories back of being abducted, and a time of serving in space and being in several compartmentalized black programs, military programs, top secret stuff. And I was abducted and went through that when I was a young boy, and the memories were erased. And I had a big memory recall event in 2015. And when that happened, I thought, at first it was just overwhelming. It literally changed my whole personality. I was looking for one thing. I was on the treadmill in life back then. I had three younger kids, and was on a treadmill trying to just earn money and chasing the wrong thing. And anyhow, I got all my memories back, and I didn't want to take it with me to the grave. And I thought, what do I do with it? Oh God, like the world is nothing like what we think it is. That's really what I woke up to. And it all happened in like one day, like in the space of 3 days, I got 20 years worth of memories to download, extra memories on top of all my memories of my life that I have already. So I have thought to go to counseling, right? And I thought, man, if I got in the phone, I actually looked in the phone book, and I was going to call a counselor, and I thought, they're just going to medicate me. There's no professional that's ready for this stuff. So I got a hold of some researchers in the field, ufologists, researchers, and I started researching the things I remembered, and lo and behold, it turned out that a lot of it was, I started finding things that were real. I started to remember being places on the earth that I had never been.
Yeah.
Like imagine, I don't know, have you ever been to Michigan? Either of you guys, Drew?
Negative.
So imagine if you
Once.
just remembered once. Imagine, Drew, if you remembered all of a sudden this town in Michigan, and you went, "Wow, where'd that come from? I remember living in this town for like 2 years. I know my way around." And you go, "Well, that's weird." And then you go on Google Earth and you find the town's exactly what you remember.
Holy
Like,
crap! Yeah,
so
that
that's
would be a
exactly what happened to me. That's exactly what happened to me. I went on Google Earth and I went, "Well, if this is real," I sat on it for a day or two, and the morning I sat down on the computer and I looked on Google Earth and I went, "Oh my God." I found the town in Peru. I'd lived there for 2 years out of that time, out of that 20 years. And I'd lived in Seattle, on one of the islands around Seattle. And I went immediately and found there. And I was like, oh, and it's a pretty big area. I know my way around it. And I've never been there. So I still don't have a passport stamp in Peru. But I know the area quite well. And I've talked to people from there. And I've actually called out a lot of things. Um, I called out when the plaza, when was it, the Plaza de Armas in this town that I remember, Boca, Colorado, when the Plaza de Armas was built in '83.
And where at again was it?
It's called Boca, Colorado. Nowadays they changed the name. So this is interesting. Is it was Puerto Tawantinsuyo.
Okay. For some reason, I thought you said I thought you meant like the state Colorado. I was like,
Right.
okay, that's where I'm from.
It's
Okay, gotcha.
Spanish. I think it means mouth or river mouth or something
Okay.
like that. So,
Yeah.
no, here's what's happened though is recent. This is this year. So, this 2015, I got my memories. 2016, I did my first interview for Exopolitics. I've been doing interviews every week since, like
Yeah.
hundreds of interviews. I've got thousands of hours of interviews. Put out the 2 books. I've been on Gaia. Okay, so Puerto Tawantinsuyo, Peru is a small town in the Madre de Dios, the Mother of God region of Peru, in the jungle place. And so you can't really go there. There's a lot of illegal gold mining and cocaine production. So it's it's like
Cocaina.
Delicious.
the
Please
busco,
share.
the
Yeah.
garbage. They make the paste and ship it out.
Uh,
So up until recently, it wasn't even, there was no internet presence or anything there. So this town, Puerto Tawantinsuyo, I went and found it, and I know my way around. I knew the airstrip, I knew the town, I knew the fishing holes, all of it. And
Yeah.
I went on record, with researchers back in 2015. Recently, they they changed the name to Boca, Colorado. So you can go find it
Okay.
on the map right now. And if you go about 12 miles east of there, up the river, the Madre de Dios, the little town there was they named it Puerto Tawantinsuyo.
Okay.
So they moved it. And then if you look on Google, there's a historical landmark that says Tony Rodegez. Somebody,
What?
and you can't just do that. You don't go on Google Earth and just make a historical landmark. You got to be somebody, I guess, that knows what they're doing. You can't just, like me and you, I don't know, you tell me. And anybody listening, you guys, your guess is as good as mine. But I know that I can't go on Google Earth and right click a spot and go, this is a historical landmark because this happened. And
Yeah.
it doesn't get accepted. So they got accepted by Google. If you go look right now, at Porto Tawantinsuyo, which is the wrong town from what's in my book and in my testimony, because that town is now named Boca, Colorado, and then Tony Rodriguez is there. So we looked. So some friends looked into it, and they, just in case, they're like, "Well, what if there's like a guitar player named Tony Rodriguez from that town or something?"
Yeah.
And so we looked into it. Nothing. There's no Tony Rodriguez there, even though. And that side of Peru is more, I believe, more Spanish than Portuguese. Rodriguez with an S on the end is Portuguese.
Yeah.
So that was creepy. But then the other thing that happened recently, about within the last 6 months, I think about 5 months ago, is I did another show, a YouTube show that was in Spanish for people for Mexico. It was a
Yeah.
Mexican show, basically Southern California, and the show with YouTube was for Spanish, Latinos. And there were two guys that heard the show, and they were from Peru. One of them is in a famous UFO incident from the 80s. He was a fighter pilot, an Su-22 fighter pilot, and it was down in the bottom part of the southern desert of Peru, where he was shooting at a ball UFO. It's documented. It's a famous case.
Okay.
So the other guy, they're both pilots in Peru, and so I remember in 83 to 85, I was in that town, and I'd been abducted out of my room, gone to a base with ETs, short reptilian and tall grays, or medium-sized grays, and then taller grays, and they did a surgery on me, and I woke up in Inyo Kern, California, in an MK Ultra, like a trauma-based mind control program. And at the
Yeah.
end of that, they put us in a remote viewing program, and it was CIA. It was the money from the Grill Flame Project Grill Flame program. So after that, they were drugging. They'd give me an IV, and they would drug me, and I would pass out. I would be near death, and I would channel information. And then I went to Seattle to where my owner was, and they used me, like I was there like a week, and they put me under, and they were getting advice, like business advice, me and two other kids.
Yeah.
And then they shipped me off to Peru, to that town in Peru. This was in 83, right in like January of 83. So they were flying plane loads of the cocaine paste from that town to Santa Marta, Colombia, about a 10.5 hour flight each way. And they would put me under, and I was the security system. I would say if there were police, or if there was going to be bad weather, or if they got lost or something, like that's what they did. And I didn't remember. I was on an intravenous, like I was put under, but it was
Yeah.
there was science to it, whatever. So the airplane, I remember the guy that was my handler. He was the only one that could talk English. Loved it because the name was Commando. They called it the Command. It was a C-46. It was a Douglas or Curtis C-46 Commando. And he always said, this is a Commando. And he was like stoked because, in his youth, like Che Guevara was in the area, and he always saw himself like these guys walked around with guns.
Yeah.
and he saw himself as a commando. So he loved it. He was like stoked. They loved that. We loved the plane. You know, these are guys that grew up in the jungle, not a whole lot there, and then we had their own. They all of a sudden had their own airplane.
Yeah.
So, and I remember they let me crawl through the front of it and look out there. It has a distinct little small window in the front of the plane on the bottom side, and they let me crawl and look out of it. So I never forgot that. So I had my memory. I went on record. I don't think originally in 2015, but I think by 2016 I had remembered that it was a C-46. So fast forward to 6 months ago, about 5.5, 6 months ago, and I'm in a conference. These two guys wanted to meet me, so we did a private conference call. There's three of them, two guys in the Peruvian Air Force, and one guy named Julio. And I go, "Have you ever been there, the Madre de Dios?" And the other one was like, "No." You know, the one that the fighter pilot was no, but the other guy was like, "Yeah, I was there in 1990. We were doing raids on the narcos for the war on drugs."
Yeah.
And I said, just randomly, I said, "Well, you ever heard of a C-46 Commando?" And he went, "Oh yeah, that's in Pucallpa." And in the Zoom call, I go, I'm sitting there. I was like blown away because for years I've been looking for that plane because this is evidence to validate my story, to validate my
Yes.
testimony. So I looked for, I
Yes.
thought there's got to be a registry somewhere, but it's like in Spanish, and like it's a rare plane. It was a long range variant. It's a rare plane, and there's only like two in service in all of South America, not in Peru. So I was like, man, like all the records from the 80s were in paper, so they're not digitized. You can't find. Like I tried to find the car of the girl in Seattle as well.
Yeah.
Um, so he goes, "Yeah, it's in Pucallpa." I said, "The C-46 Commando." He said, "Yeah, we confiscated that from Puerto Maldonado, which was the next town over, which where they stored it. Like it would drop us off and fly to Maldonado, 15-minute
Mhm.
flight, and they would leave it there, park it." And I go, "What? Wait, what?" And sure enough, I go to Pucallpa on Google Earth. You guys can do this if you're listening. Pucallpa, Peru. It's a pretty big town. And there's a main airport in the middle of the town. If you go to the south end of it, there's three planes that they had confiscated from the narcos in the 90s. And the top gray one is that plane. So I found the plane that I went on record for before. So, you know what I'm saying? Like that's a validating thing. That was something that was huge. And this is just recent. Like I'm going back and shaking out more evidence on top
Oh
of the other
man.
things that I remember. And so I found that. And then the other guy was going there to La Paz to visit his family, and it
Yeah.
was only $100, so I ponied up the money for him to fly there and go get pictures of the plane up close to try to get the tail number. But it's like there's a security fence around. He could only get so close. So I've got pictures of the plane up close, but he went and confirmed it. And I got a side view of the plane that you can't get on Google Earth or in any of the views on that street view. And
Yeah.
that's the plane, man. I identified it. So that's kind of a big deal. So fast forward, I'm talking about aliens. I'm talking about working. I worked on a UFO for 12 years. I worked on two separate craft. I was sold from those programs. I went back to Seattle. I was, a slave basically in Seattle, in what was a foster home, and we were sexually abused for political parties and for other things that were going on the West Coast for politics and military personnel. And at the end of that, about when I was 16, so about the end of 86, 87, they sold me off to the military, and I went in because I had come in through the secret space program. I was sold off into space, and I went to the back of the moon and was retrained as a support soldier. Went to Mars, was in right, and right now I know the crowd is going, "Wait, what the, right?" So if nobody's heard it before, they're going, "Wait,
Yeah.
what?"
Yeah.
And that's be weird
I've
if you
already heard the
weren't.
whole story, so it's good stuff, guys. It's good
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, it'd be weird if you weren't skeptical. I was honest. I'm the first one to say it. But you know what, though? You got to explain that plane because I've never been to
Yeah.
Peru. So how did I know that? So that's just one. You got to explain the house in Seattle. You got to explain Inyo how I knew that those three buildings that are now classified as California special districts would be perfectly legal to torture little kids. Like the rooms that I remember, somebody went on the tax assessment, right? I'm going, before I get into the space stuff, I'll say this. When I woke up in Inyo, the three buildings that I remember, somebody was a private investigator in 2018. He said, "Well, let me look into it." He logged on to he got access to the database that has the tax assessment for every structure in the United States. So every
Yeah.
time you build a building, it gets tax assessed. So these buildings don't exist. They're not in that database. Out of the whole data, and it's law. It's like a congressional law. And so he looked, and they're called a special district classification. So the police, even the military police, do not have jurisdiction in those three buildings that I remember. But does it prove
Oh
that I
man.
was there exactly? No, but it does prove that if they were going to put me through a trauma-based mind control program, me and a dozen other kids, and torture us and make us watch weird movies while they were shocking us for 6 months, it would be perfectly legal inside those buildings. So they had it classified. So that's another coincidence. You got to explain that. You got to explain the plane and the fact that I found the house in Seattle, and that I called out the salt deposits on the planetoid series correctly. So what I'm saying is I went to Mars, and I was in a military program there. There are underground bases, and we did go out on the surface of Mars, but there's quite a bit of infrastructure on Mars that's all underground. When that program got canceled, and I was flown to a larger city that looked swanky. I ain't gonna lie, it was a modern architecture. There was palm trees inside. There were domes that were under the dirt, and they were clear. And there were palm trees and water fountains and people from all over, and they were coming and going. It looked like an airport, like walking through an airport, but the whole place. And I was there for months, for the better part of, at least 8 or 9 months there, and they put me through an assessment program with a tall gray ET, was basically the professor, the guy in charge of the thing. And he would plug me into a computer, and it would assess me. It would show me scenarios, and then ask me what I would do. It wasn't like our school. It was all decision based. And it did an assessment of me, and then it tested me to see what I was ideal for, and I landed on skilled labor, which was ship maintenance. And then it trained me for ship maintenance, how to use the tools, basically. And then they shipped me off to Ceres, CERES. And when I got there, there was basically a German colony inside the planetoid Ceres that was very highly advanced, but it was basically the Deutsch culture. It was like being in a European space colony. And I was there for the better part of 12 years, and I worked on a craft that I believe it was 2 submarines.
Yeah.
Both put together, like 2 separate submarines that were put together that were converted into a spaceship. And for like 8 years before it was decommissioned, and I was maintenance down in the bottom decks of it. And every day I'd ride a train to the hangar and get on the umbilical and go on the ship and work. And it was pretty boring. It was a pretty, what do you call it? It was a pretty tasteless lifestyle. Basically, I was slave labor. Then that ship got decommissioned, and I got promoted to be a cargo engineer. And it was a modern ship that they had purchased the chassis from ETs, from some other species that built the chassis, and then they put it in there, and then they went in and put the human systems in it. They added the water fountains and the computer systems that were all ours. They went and built it, and it was a more modern craft. It was about 1,000 feet long, and I was a cargo engineer, and we did trade missions to different planets, 4 or 5 planets a day in our galaxy. And sometimes we went outside of the galaxy to nearby galaxies and did trade missions. And we were trading goods for tech or tech for tech. The entire mission was to advance the technology of the colony. And I did that for 3 or 4 years, 2, 3 years. And they put me back. It was the end of my 20-year tour, and they put me back. I was taken, my best recollection is that I was taken April 17th, 1982. And it was a Thursday. I came in contact with a guy that was taken, that a kid I went to school with said his dad was an Illuminati, and I kind of picked on him. I bullied him. And on the science fair, his dad came in to be a science fair on the judge on Wednesday, and he said, "Dad, that's that boy I told you about." And on Thursday night, I woke up with an ET in my face. And then all of those things happened. And on Friday morning, I woke up in my bed with no memory of what happened, but the sensation of not being home for 20 years. I woke up a boy in my room with my toys on the floor, and I felt like I hadn't seen it for 20 years. And I totally was a different person. I was a different person. And, obviously I'm leaving out a lot, right? I mean, how long's it been? How long we've been talking? 15 minutes. So, you know what I mean? Like, obviously I'm not telling you guys the whole, everything. I tried to get it as quickly as I can so that we can talk about basically what's happened since, because talking about it has taken on a life of its own as well.
Yeah. You all right, Zook? Zook, you there?
Oh yeah.
Are you with me? Yeah. I
I am.
realize. I mean, I wish there was a live chat. I know that sometimes I do these shows, and if the crowd doesn't know anything about any of the other guys that, because I'm not the only one that says they've been through this.
Yeah.
So there's several other guys that have come forward in the last 20 years. It's been a long since the 90s. Guys have been coming forward saying that they've been through the similar things. The 20-year tour, a career return program, or a 20 back, whatever you want to call it. And there's a lot of people that have come forward saying that they've experienced the exact same thing. They're taken, and then you think about this: like how many UFO sightings are the people? They describe it like this, man. I saw the car stopped running, and I saw some lights, and then we saw a gray alien standing in the road, and then I don't know what happened, and
Yep.
something weird
Missing time.
happened, and we
Mm.
woke up, and it was like an hour later, and I
Yep.
feel different, but I can't explain how I feel different. And then they just let us go. We drove home, and that was it. Right. So that's or in my
Happens.
room, people
Happens a
see it in their
lot.
house. Yeah, in their
Yeah.
house. Like, man, all the house was tripping. I heard something outside. I walked in my hallway. There was a gray standing there. Then all of a sudden, it was an hour later, and I went back to bed. I don't know, and I feel weird. I ain't been right since. And
Yeah.
so they just don't remember it. So it was 30 years later before I got my memories back. And what happened was I got an MRI scan of my head. I on in April. It was like April 28th or something, 2015. I went to the doctor, and she said, "We better get you checked out." I needed glasses, and so I was getting the headaches in the back of my head. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't have glasses, you can get those
Yeah.
headaches. I had the dull headache all the time from working in front of a computer all the time. And she said, "Well, let's just check you out anyhow while you're here. It's your yearly checkup." So I went and got an MRI. And then about 10 days later, I saw the Randy Kramer info, and he said, I always had memories of being taken. I was that guy. I'd have a couple drinks at the party and say I was taken by aliens. I was abducted by aliens, man. You wouldn't believe it. And so I thought that I had been taken many times because I had separate memories. I had memories of sitting in the room with ETs as a boy, and then I had memories of being on a ship as a grown up, as a man in my 20s. So I thought they took me a few times. I didn't understand. And then when I saw Randy Kramer goes, no, they use quantum time dilation, and they take you for 20 years, and then they put you back in time and put you back in the original body. And so you're only gone for a short time, half hour, or short, a matter of minutes. You're gone for a matter of minutes. And they used you for labor for 20 years in a 20-year increment. And he said that, and I went, "Oh my God, that's exactly." I went, "That's what they did." Oh my God! And once I accepted it, it's like all the memories happened. It was like it was a big flood of memories.
Yeah.
So I got my memories back. Um, that's basically it, man. Any story? Any questions?
Let's pull out like a long list that rabbles down. Um,
Yeah.
oh dang it, I can't even read my own writing. Let's see. Oh, well, I thought this was interesting too. Do you know a lot about your bloodline? Uh,
Well, I'm a Rodriguez, so from Portugal. So there's this kind of a neat origin story, the original Rodriguez. But my on my dad's side, they came from the Canary Islands to Hawaii in the 1870 something, right when Hawaii became a territory and they claimed property. And then my mom is like French Canadian, English and French descent coming through Canada. That family line. I'm O negative. Everybody that's been abducted is an O negative or an A positive. It's weird. A negative, A positive, O negative. That's like 80% of abductees. It's weird.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So the rest of the bloodline, I'm not sure. I have a strong suspicion they took my dad that night as well.
Really.
But yeah, I have a
Okay.
real.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. This one's new to me.
What's that?
About your dad. What? Why do you think that? Or why do you know that?
Well, I don't know it, but I have a strong suspicion. It was just the way he acted the next morning. Was as
Really?
if
What?
he went. He said that he had worked and now he's got to get up and go to work. And he said, all I did was work for 20 years, and now I got to get up and immediately
Oh
go to work. He was
man.
like
Oh,
super depressed, and he looked at me, and he was like, and my mom said, my mom looked at, I remember it was weird because also my mom would make us like waffles. It was my sister, my mom, and my dad. We had an old farmhouse, right, in southern Michigan. And typical morning, my mom would get us. We'd have a quick breakfast and then get out the door. We had to go walk to the bus. This morning, the table was messy for some reason. Like she went shopping and the table was covered. Our dinner table was covered with stuff. So normally she would have just put us in the living room on the coffee table. Like really, that was the standard. But today she made a big giant breakfast. She said they told me to make breakfast, and she got out the card table and the chairs in the middle of the kitchen. It was
Yeah.
awkward. And so she was sitting next to me, and my sister came out. And she said, "You guys see the bright lights last night?" And my dad goes,
Ah,
"Just shut up. Nothing happened." My dad goes, "Nothing happened." Then my mom goes, I don't know. I something happened last night. Don't you remember it?" She's like, "What did you see?" She kept asking my sister. My dad goes, "Just zip it." And he was like, he was bummed. You know what I mean? And then he talked about, he said that like going to work. All I did was work the whole time, and now I got to get up and go to work. And she said, "Michael, you love your job." He worked for GM. He had a good job. My dad was
yeah.
and he was just out of it. Like, and then so then she looked at me and she goes, "Look, he's got a mark on him, like right here on my behind my left ear, like in this area." So she goes, "Look, he's got a mark on him." And my dad was like, "Just shut up." Like he was like it was weird because he wasn't like that either. That wasn't
Yeah.
really normal behavior for him, really. And so he was like, "I don't want to hear any more of it." And we sat there in silence, and I was just I literally came down and gave my mom and my dad and my sister big hugs, like I hadn't seen them in 20 years. I was like, "Oh my God, I'm
Yeah.
so happy to see you. I didn't think I'd ever see you again." And they were like, my sister was like, "Shut up, dummy." Like she was like, "Shut up,
Yeah.
man. You were just
Being a
here. We just
sister.
had dinner." Yeah. I was like, I literally had the sensation of being gone for
Yeah.
20 years and waking up the next day. Like it was the weirdest thing. And so, of course, obviously everybody tells you just suck it up and go. So a couple of days later, it was like back to normal. But I went to school that day, and I was not a big school. What is it? Where I was at Lincoln was like B class. I think I had 400 kids in my grade. But I raised my hand that day, and later on, like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and to go to the bathroom, and I didn't remember where it was, and it was right across the hall. And this is like later at the end of the school year. I had amnesia. I didn't
Yeah.
remember because it was the period of time had gone. And I said, "Where's the bathroom?" They laughed at me. My teacher actually called my mom that weekend and told her about it, and they wanted to get me checked out. And then there was some weird stuff that happened. I believe they came and took me again, like a follow up. I believe they abducted me again, like a week or two later, a couple weeks later. Like it's hard to tell the time, but I think that like humans, came and abducted me again and did a follow, like you know what I mean, like an investigation on me. And then I went to the doctor. My next trip to the doctor's office was weird. Was a doctor that I'd never like. My doctor all of a sudden won a vacation.
Hmm.
They called us and said, "You need to come in. We're having a special, so it won't charge your insurance if you come on this day." They said it was something like that. And then we went there, and my doctor had won a vacation, and it was a guy that was like a brain surgeon, and he was like, then I went in for my examination. He checked my with the stethoscope, and all he did was ask me, Have you had any dreams lately? What are your dreams been?" He kept asking me over and over, "What are your dreams been?" And this was like that within a month of it happening. "How have your dreams been? You've been dreaming?" And I was creeped out, so I remember just clamming up and telling him, "No, I'm fine. I don't dream anything. I don't remember anything." Like I remember saying that. And so this was institutional. That's what I mean. This was something that
Yeah.
it wasn't the ETs working independently. This was like people
All
on the boots on
together.
the ground. Yeah. Yeah.
Jeez.
So,
Man, if I was your dad, I would have just called off of work, man.
right.
I would have too had a sick day.
He could have, yeah, he could have,
Like,
but that
put
was
him
just,
put him vacation.
yeah. Some people never call in. He's one of those guys that
Yeah, I hear you.
it was rare he missed a day. But so that was afterwards. I don't talk about that time too much. And then, like I said, fast forward, few more weird things happened, in life. But fast forward, when I got my memories back and went public, I thought I was just going to talk about it once or twice, and that was it.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of dark stuff in my testimony, and it hasn't been the case. In fact, it's ramped up, and then I got up to like 300 or 400 interviews on YouTube on separate shows, many separate shows, 2 or 3 times. And in 2020, I had a buddy of mine had his own website, and every time I put out a new show, he would add the link onto a page, and he said, "Here, this is for you. You can go to this page, and this is all your interviews you've done." And I was like, "Cool." and I was putting together my website and putting together a Patreon show. And no, it was before the Patreon show, but I was putting together my own site, like a TonyRodegez.com, and doing a memory course, the memory course. And we looked, and half those links were not there anymore. Even there was a series of the good one that was like six episodes that I really talked about every little detail, and then
Yeah.
that disappeared. And I went, oh no! I
Hmm.
realized that, I thought that I got it off my chest and I could just move on. And I was like, man, all this work I did can just disappear. So we worked on the book, and I got the book out, Series Colony Cavalier, and it was number one for like 6 weeks. It's been a hit. It's still going, and it makes it a lot easier for me. I'll tell you, it's easy for me to not have to relive all the dark shit that
Yeah,
was
I got you.
painful. I'll tell you what.
Hmm.
Recently, what do you think of the new? Speaking of Seattle, what do you think of the new movie about human trafficking?
Oh, Sound of Freedom.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah, it
Yeah,
was difficult.
yeah, me and my wife supposed to go check that out Tuesday, but being like prior law enforcement, yeah, I've actually had to deal with some of that.
Yeah, I would recommend that they did. As classy as they could, they didn't show. But I would recommend everybody go have a look at that movie. I think
Definitely.
the raw reality of what goes on. So a lot of people just it's an ugly subject. Like, and this is what I went through. I was living it in Seattle, man. But you know what's funny is this was the military that was coming and buying us. So
Hmm.
this was a house in Seattle. There were 6 to 8 boys living in the house. They had another house on the property far away with girls, and we just most of the time it was like living in a foster home. It was like we had food, and it was a big house, about 5,000 to 6,000 square foot house, and we had games. We had to stay downstairs in our own place, and we had rooms with bunk beds. But every now and then, I remember, she'd say, "Boys, come on, come on." Even in the rain, we went out one time. It was like freezing rain, like cold, not freezing, but pretty cold. And she said, "Nope." I said, "Well, I got to get." We woke us up out of bed in the morning, like 8 in the morning. Get up, everybody, come on. And I was like, "Well, I'm gonna get dressed." She's like, "No, come now." So it's like we were in Fruit of the Looms, right?
Yeah.
And we went out on the deck in the back of the house, and they lined us all up, and a dude there in military formals with the trench coat and the cufflinks and everything, and they lined us up just like hookers. And he went and picked 3 of the boys for the party that weekend, and
Mm,
that happened all the time. And I never got picked for those because I was already 13 years old. I was way too old already. They were always
gotcha.
taking the bottom 3. They take the young kids. And so when you look at this movie, there's a few scenes in there where it's just hard to get your head around people that actually, what, like, how could you get off on that, right?
Yeah.
So, it's hard to get your head around that. But my testimony, so in the beginning, I'll say this, that, and I'll own up to it, I made some mistakes on my testimony, or seemingly, it's, in hindsight, being the guy that my testimony got cross-checked against turned out to not be so great. But one of the researchers that I was checking my testimony with, and I said, "Look, I remember this ship-to-ship incident, and it might have been, I think it was the ship, the name of it." So that researcher went to another whistleblower that was in the same kind of program, and he said, "Nope, that wasn't him." So the guy got back with me and said, "I'm not going to work with you anymore. I can't work with you. Yeah, you were wrong. I had one mistake." And I was like devastated by that because I thought, what do I do with this?
Yeah.
And another person that was curious, not a professional researcher, but somebody that was just like trying to unravel the whole thing. The genre in the 2015 it was just getting popular. The secret space program information was just coming out into the UFO community, and it was like a storm. Now they're trying to dismantle it. You can see
Hmm.
there's a lot of like they're trying to sweep it under the rug now because we're close to a disclosure. We're getting close. They're talking about you like just today they passed and they got a bill on Capitol Hill about disclosure.
Hmm.
Um, so anyhow, I talked to this other. I got um, kind of the door shut on me for making a mistake and it was the early days. The first few months it was like really everything was still not solidified. Like I still remember things really. And so I talked to this other researcher, and lo and behold, she was somebody that had been at one point a practicing Satanist and left the
Yeah.
religion. And there were things that I said that I witnessed in Seattle, and that I witnessed rituals that low-level Satanists don't know about. And she got a hold of the other researchers and said, look, there's no way he could have possibly known this. You're talking about the very top 0.5% of Satanism participates in these rituals that he is describing accurately. And that got me kind of in the door. And that was really how I got my very first interview in September of 2016. So it was a whole nother year before I got in front of a camera. And, I just felt like, man, imagine waking up with what I remember and then taking it to the grave.
Yeah. Like,
You
what
know
do
what
you
I'm
do with
saying?
that? Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I got to tell somebody, like, really, that's been therapy. Like,
Oh, it
that's
is
really
therapy,
been the only
man.
way to deal about it. It's just to talk about it. And you can't find people, most people. And then so now people, I'm like a beacon. Like, people get a hold of me. I do consults. I had to put a price on it. I was doing them for free,
Yeah.
and I couldn't keep up with them. I was just a jerk because I'd get 4 or 5 a day, and people were going, "Why haven't you gotten back with me?" And I'm like, I got a 9 to 5 job too, and these
Yeah.
take 2 hours a pop, so it's not going to happen. You know what I mean? Like, and so I was like, I charged money and weeded it out, but people still. I've talked to a few thousand people, one on one,
Yeah.
that say that they've been through the same thing or something similar, and I kind of lay it all out and look at the common denominators from the people I've worked with,
Mhm.
and it's just widespread, man. I'm kind of at a loss for words about where we're at with it all right now, because most of the people out of those 2,000 people, 1,800 of them had a negative experience. It was not.
Yeah.
It was. And I say this all the time. We get people like, what, I don't know what you get on your shows of people that are talking about extraterrestrials. Like, you guys are cryptid.
Well,
And
it spans. It's not just cryptids. We do extraterrestrials, conspiracies. We just had a lady on. I think it was the last episode or the episode before that. She was getting abducted by reptilians. Her mom, like,
right.
basically all of like all of like the
Generational.
women. Yeah, all of like the women in her bloodline since back when. So,
Right.
but yeah,
So somewhere in the technology, I don't know if it's either the technology to portal from A to B, or just the technology to come back. Like, they can take you, and like they had, like, in the beginning, the very first few minutes, they did a biopsy on me,
yeah,
and they had to check and see if I had the genetics compatible to it. And then we waited like 20 minutes, and it came back and they said yes. And then I qualified for one 20 tour. So some people have the genetics to do it twice that I'm aware of. And
okay,
so it's genetics. So what happens is, once you go, now they have your genetics, they have you in the record. So they're going to check your kids. A lot of people
hmm,
come with, like, why would they have you as a slave labor man and put you back? Why wouldn't they just kill you? Well, because I came back and I made a bunch of kids. You don't cut down the apple tree. And so that's
Hmm.
common too. That's really super common, is once they find you for whatever reason. Most people get found because their dad was in the military, and they all had DNA tests back in the 40s and 50s. They were
yeah,
doing they had blood samples. And so the first thing, when they got the ability to do it, they already had they already had a database of soldiers. And then once they had them, they thought, well, we don't need them, but let's look at their kids. And so that's the first question I asked. Like, so you got mom, dad, uncle, grandpa in the military? And way more than half were like, yeah. And I was a military brat, and we lived on a couple bases. I'm like, well, there we go. That's, step one, really. That's
yeah.
super common. There was another point I wanted to make about people that I've worked with, but I can't think of it right now. It's been a long day. But that's the deal, man. It's not a random, very small subject. I think a lot of cryptids are visitors anyway. I think that
Yeah.
they are very advanced. The whole Bigfoot thing, I think that's an ET, and it's so I know I breezed past saying this. I know I said it quickly, and some people are like, "Oh yeah, whatever." But we went to 4 or 5 different star systems a day, and we were
Yeah.
home at the end. We came back a few minutes. We would leave at 8 in the morning, and we would come back 5 minutes away at 7:55. So we would literally, the ship would be leaving and we would be flying back. So we had an extra 8 hours out of the day. The Ceres colony had a 20-hour day, or like 21, 20 and a half hours or something was their
Ooh.
clock. And
Yeah.
but we had, because I was on flight crew, I wasn't one of the guys mining or one of the labor guys in the colony. I had an extra 8 hours a day. So they
Yeah.
gave me a little bit of leeway outside of the chores, but I still would get roped into doing chores. And but we would come back at the same time. So that was a loophole in the rules. It was like security. Like, they did that on purpose. The ship would leave the planetoid, and like I said, let's call it 8 a.m. At 8 a.m.
Yeah.
And it would go out on them. We'd go to missions. We'd go to a star system and trade a deal. We'd pick up cargo. We'd go to another one and drop cargo, and then we'd do our job. And most of the time, I sat inside the center of the cargo bay at a computer screen and input data of what cargo was, the length, width, and height, and the weight of cargo, and then I spit out a load report and gave it to the guys in the cargo bay, and they'd stacking report. That was most of the time. But every now and then I'd get over the window and check out where we were. We were at different planets. It was like all over the place, really.
Yeah.
So when we got back 5 minutes before, we were 5 minutes as the crow flies away, so they could see if the ship was back. So if the ship didn't come back or came back to the wrong place, they knew that the mission failed, and they would scrub it. They would scrub the mission, and we wouldn't leave. So they could do aggressive missions. We actually robbed other species. We'd go to other worlds and rip them off. We'd act there like we were trading something, and while we were sitting there in the car, at the trade place, we'd load up other stuff and just fly away, because because the universe that we live in. So the reality that we live in is that intelligent life and civilizations are teaming. Like, there ain't just a few out here. There isn't just the Pleiadians and the Arcturians. Like, there are trillions of worlds with civilizations on them. Like, we would never. There's a base near Jupiter that is a trade, it's like a bulletin board for places, and we would fly there, like at the beginning of the week or every so when we ran out of places to go, we would fly there, and officers would go on to the base, and they would send messages to worlds and say, do you there was a bulletin board of worlds that were willing to trade, and then it would say where they were at, and they would send messages, can we come? We arrange it, can we come? We want to show you what we got, we want to see what you guys got for trade, basically. And then they'd get a yes and a time and a place. And so they would come back to the ship with all these stops to do, because I sat in the mission briefings. And one time we went to a place, and it held over, and we missed our next stop. We said, we're not going to the next stop, because I had the schedule, because I had to have the cargo out of the way. By the time we got to the next stop, I had to get all the shit that was loaded in front of the door out of the way. That was my job.
Out of the way, yeah.
So I said, well, what about that one? I said, and the officers we're talking, we're standing in the cargo bay. And he said, well, we're just going to stay here and finish this. And I said, well, what about the next one that's on the schedule? He's like, we're not going to go. I was like, they're going to be mad. I mean, are they going to have us back again? We're going to miss our first impression. That's pretty. And he said, look, if there were, he said, he told me how many ships there were at the colony. It was, 40 or 50 ships like ours. He said, if we had 10,000 ships like ours, and we went to 10,000 places, 5 a day, so 50,000 a day, in 10,000 years, we wouldn't make 1% of all of what's available on that list. That's how big the list was of places to go and trade. He said, we'll never get to the bottom of that. He's like, he's like, we are never going to get to, he's like, they are all expendable.
It's an uphill battle. Yeah.
I'm saying that's the reality of space travel.
Yeah.
So we are, the media tells us Star Wars is like Star Trek, like you can't get to the next quadrant because it'll be 80 years at night, warp 9. And then Star Wars is like only in the galaxy where they're at. So like, and they fly, and it takes a couple hours to get there. They put on autopilot and go play cards, play chess and stuff. It's not like that. It wasn't like that for us. We went and we were instantly there. They had instant portals. So the power.
So you guys basically just like jumping through portals to get to certain places. Correct?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The warships could go farther and fast. They could portal. They could go farther in one jump, and they could immediately jump again. Our ship, we could jump, and it would take us 2 or 3 jumps to get across the galaxy. Yeah. And it would take 20, 25 minutes to spin up and jump again. Like it saved up power and then jumped. So
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And that's regulated. Power output is regulated. So free energy is a real deal, but power
Yeah.
output is the name of the game. So it's like, what is free energy? Like, do I give you a free energy device that is the size of a refrigerator that could run your house, or do you want one the size of a barn that can run half of the world? Like, it's about output. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And the ships are basically limited. They were classed by output of power output. That was the name of the game. They gave them range on their weapons. It gave them jump ability, A to B flight. Everything was based
Yeah.
on the size of, and that's all in the hands of the ETs. They don't give that out. They don't give that information out.
Yeah.
So that's, you know what I mean? We're right back to the same old with power.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm rambling, man. I don't.
Oh, you good, brother? You good?
No, that's all I get. I'm getting a lot of juicy notes and questions to ask you. I'm like, man, I'm just so fascinated, and especially when you talked about that quantum machine, the quantum drive. Um, there was this book I forgot the name of the guy who wrote it, but it was called Beyond Science Fiction, and he actually broke down how alien spacecrafts operate, and they create like their own, at least in our world, they'll create their own gravitational field, and they talked about the quantum thing. I'm like, whoa, no wonder they can't really fire and or whatever. Um, but I did think of some random things I didn't think of. Let's
So
see.
anti-grav was real, and the jump drive. I think they called it the bridge. They called it. We call them
Oh, that
portals.
makes sense.
We call them portals. They call them bridges, and I think they call them the German name for bridge. I'm gonna look that up. But it was a bridge. They said it's gonna take us 10 more minutes to bridge. Um, if they did it, I remember one time they did it and they landed inside an atmosphere, like in the upper atmosphere. Like, they were trying to get close to a planet where we were going, one of the destinations, and they
Mhm.
thought the atmosphere of the planet was only 100 miles when it was really 200 miles, and they got
Oh,
inside
so
of it,
they
and
miscalculated.
it coated the ship with ice. The whole
Mm.
ship
Oh,
got iced from it. So the effect from portaling was a cold flash. You know what I mean? The ship would get in and it got
yeah.
coated with ice. So they would always portal in nearby a planet and then fly in.
Yeah.
And the anti-grav is how they do that, just like what we're seeing in the UAPs. The
Yeah.
anti-grav, and what it does is it makes the nearby water weightless. So the hydro pneumatic water, I hope I got that word right, and it just pushes the water out of the way. I hated when we flew underwater. Um,
What sensation did it feel like?
it was the exact same, but the hull flexed. The, it would
Oh,
pop. It would pop. It would go, like bing, like you're in a big tin can,
Yeah.
and you could hear it for like far away, like 5 decks up. You could hear a pop of the hull flexing, because
Yeah.
just when we would change direction in the water, it would flex, and it was scary. Like I was like, we're gonna
Oh,
get. I was like claustrophobic. I felt comfortable in space and not underwater, which is
yeah. Because
weird.
all that
They're both
pressure.
you're just as dead. You know what I mean? You're just as dead either way. But I was super uncomfortable with water. We did go underwater. There was an underground base in the Catarina Mountains in Brazil, and
Yeah.
we would go there and go underground, and we would meet people and trade. Um, Inner Earth people. We met an advanced civilization. They had more tech than us, and we totally kissed their butt every time we
Yeah.
dealt with them. We were like rolled out the red carpet, and then we went from there. There was an underwater route to go to what they called the High Command, which was in Antarctica, underneath Antarctica, and we went in there, and it was like 48, 50 degrees in a big dome that was melted out in the ice, and there was, I want to say grass, but it was like there was like a dead grass in there,
Yeah.
and it was muddy.
Do you think that's why they have like the Antarctic Treaty?
Absolutely, oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So we were told it was the High Command. The first few times we went there, the first 3 times we were there, we had to scrub everything down. We had to make sure we were dressed like no spot on you. We were subject to inspection, and they were
Yeah.
nervous. They were super nervous. The command crew, they were sending guys down. Like, people never came in the cargo section. We had a
You almost guys are almost kind of getting like audited. Like just
exactly. We were
yeah.
subject to inspection. We did get an inspection once, but the rest of the time we still had to be ready. It was like, you might get an inspection, you might not. But if you fail it, like, it was detrimental to their career. So they really cracked the whip on us for that,
mm.
which is why. And then after like a year, because the ship was new, So after like a year of that, we didn't have to get that anymore. Like we knew we weren't going to get an inspection, so everybody kind of relaxed. Um,
Man.
yeah, there was a time. Look, I'm level with you. I'm not selling it, and I'm going to have Stockholm syndrome, right?
Yeah.
So this is a culture that had slavery. So these guys, most of these guys came out of prisons in the world down here. They were taken out of prison, and they were criminally minded. So the guys that were in my barracks most of them were miners. They were mining and building buildings inside the planetoid series. They were mining holes and then putting living structures in there. They were trying to space. And they were criminally minded. They were criminals. It was like hanging out with criminals,
Yeah.
But I'm not trying to defend that. But what I want to say is that even though it was basically devoid of any kind of like satisfaction. You know what I mean? When you work and you do good, you catch overtime, you get a paycheck. There's some satisfaction working for yourself. If you own your own business, your own project, and then it does well, it's like super satisfying, right? But if you work a job and you're good at it, there's a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah, it's kind of pride in your work. Yeah.
We had times at work where we had fun, and like it wasn't all bad, and even the circumstance that I was under, that was terrible. The idea of parking in space and then walking and looking out the window at the starfield is something that
That's
is absolutely breathtaking. It's like, imagine being a prisoner but still being taken to see the Grand Canyon. Like, it sucks being a prisoner, but you saw the Grand Canyon. You saw that wonder, that moment where you went, oh wow, like there. So there was that. There was plenty of times with that, and then back my other piece of evidence that is really big to me. It might not be big to the people listening, but we flew over geysers. So Enceladus we were not allowed in the airspace around Saturn. So there's a different organization that had colonized Saturn, different corporation. And so they didn't get along with the Ceres Colony Corp. But Enceladus has geysers. There's times when they have like 50, hundreds of geysers go off at once.
Yeah.
And we snuck in there and flew through it. And they offered that we could leave our workplace and go to the window and watch. They offered us 5 minutes to go look at the geysers, and I did it. I wanted to catch up on work, and I stayed at my post. And for like 6 months after that, I just never. Everybody told me how stupid I was because it was the most beautiful thing they ever saw in their whole life, and I was just an idiot. And they were like, "Dude, go to the window. What are you trying to work for?" And I was just trying to get a high school. I had a girlfriend, and I was trying to get. I was trying to win rights to go see my girl. So Ceres has a geyser, and it goes off randomly every 6 to 9 years.
Yeah.
So it might go off in 6 years, it might be 9 years, so it goes again somewhere in there. And the geyser went off only for like 2 or 3 days, a short time. So we flew by that, and they announced it, and so I did leave my post, and I went and looked out the window. And when I got to the C deck, there's a main deck in the ship. Like where I was, it was like industrial. It looks like like metal, like epoxy coated metal with the graded flooring. It was like industrial, the cargo bay. But on the C deck, it was like carpeted and bigger, wider. It was the main deck that you could go. You go to the bath. That was the bathroom and the galley, the food.
Yeah.
So I went to the C deck, and the main observation window, it's like in the middle of the ship, was crowded. I couldn't get up to it. So I went to one of the smaller windows, and there was an officer that stood next to me. I never met him before, but he was an officer. And we're looking and watching the geyser. It was the most beautiful thing. We fly low over the Okator crater. It's like 50 miles wide. The geyser's there over the white spots, and it's coming up about 10 kilometers in the air, shooting water up. And the water evaporates into a gas at the top, and it shoots out. It had salt left over, and the salt was coming out at different speeds. So the outside of it was moving fast, but the salt on the inside was snowing. Like, imagine snow coming down at different speeds in a plume. And so that was a memory that I always had. Like, even after I had my memories erased in my life, like, I still remembered that. That was like one of the most beautiful things. And so when I got my memories back, 2015, I talked about it. Then the Dawn probe was on the way to Ceres, was in the distance. And I said, what are those white spots? And I was like, I'm not sure. And when it got closer and I saw the crater, I said, that's salt. I remember that. That's the geyser.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I said this, I went on record. And then the Dawn probe went into high orbit around Ceres. And the NASA first said, this is in 2016, and they go, we think the white spots are not acidity, that's not life. It's probably sulfur and a bunch of a cocktail of other weird minerals. And so I told my researcher that I said, no, it's salt. And he said, do you want to redact your statement? Do you want to take it back what you said now? Because they're going to go lower and confirm. I said, that is absolutely salt. I remember that. Like, I will never forget that moment. The officer standing next to me told me that. So in August 20th, 2020, NASA came out and they published their findings that it was briny salt. So I was right. So, and JPL came out with it was in August of 2020, and they said NASA confirmed it. What happened was the probe went to lower orbit and it actually got a good spectral analysis, and they confirmed that it was, in fact, briny salt. It's like salt water. There's an ocean of salt water inside Ceres, and that's what that was. They still haven't said that it's a geyser, though. Like, they shut the probe down before the geyser would go off again. I thought that was weird. So they're like, nah, we just forget about Ceres. Nothing happened in here. No water here.
Of course.
So that's really what happened. If they were still there, if that probe was going, it would see the geyser, and that would be worth sending probes. So it's not going to happen, I don't think.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Man, I wonder what might be swimming around under that ocean.
Well, the other thing is the miners. So it's in the book. I got to say, there's a whole lot more info in the book. Hold it up. Boom.
Hey, Tony, hold on real quick. Hey Tony, put that back up because I'm actually gonna snag that. What is it called?
Ceres Colony Cavalier. That's the first book. And then there's a pretty, like, the spiritual side of it, like a woo version, is my sequel, Project Star Maker. There's my two books. So the book writing thing, it let me get rid of a lot of the negative feelings, like having to relive it in interviews and talk about it all the time. Like, it's like getting the book done feels like I got it off my chest. It's a big deal.
Oh, it's almost kind of like a journaling, because when I had some PTSD from law enforcement and stuff, and that's what, like, one of my therapists said. He's like, Andrew, you should really think about, like, journaling. It really helps out a lot, and that's what I started doing, and it does. It helps out a lot. It's basically what you're doing is you journal.
The thing that's living in your head that's hurting, the thing that's irritating you emotionally, and I say irritating, like, I know that's not even close to what it is, but the thing that's causing the irritation emotionally, and it's living only in your head. When you write it down, now it lives somewhere else, and you can let it go.
It's like you just like transferring it down to something else. Yeah.
Now it lives somewhere else. It doesn't have to live only in my head, because you can't forget about that stuff, man. You don't want to. You will never forget about it, because you don't want to live it again. You want to master. You want to master the abuse. When something bad happens like that, you want to become the master of it. So that's why people that get hurt, I always say, like, like a girl that has her boyfriend that beats her up, they'll finally break up, or a family rescues her, and she goes finds another guy that beats her up.
Yeah.
But it's because you want to master the abuse, because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't compute.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and that's in my case, that was what it is. Like I said, I don't feel like I have Stockholm syndrome. I don't have hatred, though, anymore. I was angry growing up. Like, after I got back, like, later on in my life, I didn't know why, but I was an angry youth. Into my 20s, I was always, getting in fights and doing stupid stuff. And after I got my memories back, it was like I solved it, because now I know why.
Yeah.
I felt that way, and I could let go of it.
It was that big aha moment.
It was, man. I came back the next day. So I was taken on a Thursday, and I got up Friday and went to school. But then I was lucky that I had the weekend, because I was so disoriented.
Yeah.
My sister and I started playing. We played hide and seek. I was 10, she was 14 and a half, right? And we were home alone, nothing to do. And she was like, I thought you were hiding here. I said, I can't. I got claustrophobia. And she's like, you don't have claustrophobia. I would always hide in small places.
Yeah.
And I came back with claustrophobia.
Yeah.
Like that, bang, overnight. And when I got my memories back, I went, oh, that's why. I remember the time that I got injured in a tight space that caused it. And I was able to dispel it, because now I could put my finger on it. Like, that was a big moment for me. So I talk to people all the time, and people go, man, should I go to get hypnosis? Should I try? I have a memory course. I have exercise, like mental exercises that help build on repressed memory. It works too. And people ask me, should I go and get my memories? I remember being taken. I don't remember anything else. Should I get my memories back? And I'm like, I can't answer that for you. You know what I mean? Like once you get horrible memories back, you can't re-forget them. For
Yeah.
one, for me, in my case, it was the cure. Like in my case, I think it was a positive. Like I was able to fix a lot, but I don't recommend it. It's not for everybody. It's you got to trust your own gut on what's right for you. You know.
Yeah, it's kind of like I guess like each person's different. It's almost like that saying, like ignorance is bliss, I guess sometimes, because you don't want to open
Totally.
up that door.
Well, the other thing is, like the ETs, they're counting on that. They're counting on us thinking ignorance is bliss. And they said it to me all the time. Like there were times up there, I'm in a room getting surgery on me and painfully so. And I could communicate with I'm in a base telepathically communicating with ETs, and they did not give me anesthetic because they didn't waste it. And I said, why? How can you do this? This is inhumane. How can you live with yourself doing this? And the answer was always the same. You're not going to remember it anyway. So that was like one of the motivators for me to remember. Like I was pissed off, so mad about that they were like, you're not going to remember it anyway. So to them, they justify doing that, like on a grand scale. I did the math on it. I got to redo the math because I'm guessing at the numbers, but I added it up. It was a 4-man crew, and they knocked me out in about 3 hours, 3 to 4 hours. So a 4-man crew doing 2 people a day, and it was a giant building. It was the size of a shopping mall at minimum. So you fill that with 4-man crews in one room. How many rooms? 1,000. So 2,000 people a day, 7 days a week over the year. It's like in the millions in a short period of time of people that can give you the intake into these programs. So they can take millions of people and 10,000 a week, whatever that is, 500,000 a year. So over 10 years, 5 million people can go. And that's about maybe the way that it's sprinkled out of the people that I deal with, So it's quite a bit of people that can go to this. And when you think about the other thing is, so I'll say this to people because I know right now there's somebody listening that's skeptical going, bullshit. Why wouldn't they just build a robot? Why would they take you? Why wouldn't they build a robot? Well, we are the best robots by far. We're programmable way more than we think we are. Believe me, your kids on their little thing, like they were making kids cut themselves, and now they're making them do worse things. We are completely programmable. For one. For two, we're completely talented, and when you give us a task, we'll actually get good at it and invent better ways to do it. For one, a robot to dig a hole, you can make a robot that can dig a hole, but then
you gotta keep programming it.
You got to build another robot to put a concrete in the hole, and you got to build another robot to build the building, and then staff the building with different robots. So you have to build all these robots, and there's maintenance. People, you can have the same crew of people, dig the hole, put the foundation, build the building, staff the building, and do the task. And if you leave them alone for a while and come back, there'll be more of them. And people heal, and then they can put us back. If you die, it doesn't matter. They just put you right back. So it's it's free labor. And if you do the math on that, if they spend $1 million on you, it's still worth it to get 20 years of labor out of you, hard labor. There's a researcher, I saw a presentation, and I don't want to really name names, but a pretty world-renowned ufologist said this is bull. He's like, the secret space program can't exist because there's estimates that these are $1 trillion a craft, these mile-long aircraft carrier-looking craft that fly into space that rumored that that Gary McKinnon, the whistleblower, got found dead in the database. He said these are $1 trillion. I don't know how he came up with that ridiculous number, but he said, where's the economy? He's like, who's paying for this? And I was like, I just told you guys, I just wrote a freaking book. I just told you guys I was a slave. They don't pay nothing. They pay nothing. Yeah. They pay nothing for the guys that are digging the metal out of the ground on some other planet. They're paying nothing for the materials, or what I'm saying, no labor. You remove labor from it. And I did a talk in Orlando last year, and I said I did it use an aircraft carrier. It's like whatever, $600 million for an aircraft, or $1.5 billion. I forget the numbers. It's late. But basically, I said if you remove the labor cost from extracting the material, then it drops at 40% or 50% or something. Then you remove the labor cost from building the damn thing, and it gets it down to it's cheap. It's 200 million instead of $1.5 billion. It's 200. So this $1 trillion craft is only 200 billion worth of effort that goes. You know what I mean? They're using slave labor. That's my point. Yeah. And they're selling it like this. Let me ask you this real quick. if I came to you, if I was a magically delicious little elf and I came to you in your room in the middle of the night and popped up and poof, and I had light and I was just floating there looking magical, and I said, look, man, we need your help. I need you to do some work for us. And you're going to live for 20 years in space. You're going to get to see different planets, but you're going to do slave labor. We'll take care of you. You'll be healthy. We'll be fed, 3 hot in a cot. And you get to live, you're going to come back tomorrow. You'll live 20 years and be 20 years smarter. And you'll come back tomorrow, but we need you to do a job for us to help us out. What would you say?
Oh, what's the job? No.
Exactly. Well, we don't know. You know what they say? You know what they said to me? We're going to find the job that you're going to be best for. We're going to find the job that you're going to be best for, but you're going to get to live 20. You're blessed by this because you've only got so much time. It doesn't matter how much money or whatever you do. You're only going to live 100 years. We're giving you 20 more years of life. This is super valuable. So that's your payment for this, but you come help us. And everybody else is doing it too. And we'll find the best job for you. You come up work with us. Think about that. And they're asking kids this, like that's the other thing. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I'm just I like how they like word that. Oh, it sounds great, but as an adult, it's like, what the freak? No. Well, the kids, they're like,
then there was a kid.
They're like, oh, let's go for it. Yeah.
Oh, you look at you look at all the sci-fi. It's like the resistance needs you, and they got little kids learning.
Yep.
At the very end of the show, it's like little kids that are like, we are going to need star pilots, and so their kids are already learning that if they meet an ET, to say yes. You know what I'm saying? Like that's where Disney is leaving off on the stuff. So they're being programmed through the media. It's always been like that. It's always been like that for as long as the TV's been out. So they've been doing this a long time. What does the devil steal? The boogeyman, the devil. The devil doesn't kill you. He steals your soul.
Yeah.
And you go live somewhere else. You live in hell for a minute. And you get what I'm saying? You follow me here? They've been doing this for thousands of years to us. Yeah. They've been taking people, and it's your soul. And you go live on some other planet and do work. You're living in hell in slave labor. Then you put you back and go, the devil's took my soul because I must have been bad. Yeah. And so this is the urban legend that's gone on. So you get what I'm saying? Like, it kind of pisses me off because every time I say that, people are like, dude, don't talk about religion. I wanted to put a big chapter in the book, and everybody made me cut it out. And I was like, look, this is the urban legends of the devil. If the devil was evil, wouldn't he just kill you? But instead he takes your soul and you live in hell. Right? So this is like a literal version of that, but you get put back. You wake up and say, back in the day before there was media, when people were tribal, they probably didn't even bother erasing your memories. Right? They probably put people back and didn't even bother erasing them because what was going to happen? Nothing, So, I mean, I'm speculating at this point, outside of my testimony, but from what I've learned, it would make perfect sense. The world, we live in a different circumstance. And why would they keep it secret from us if not to harm us?
Yeah.
Right. So, and you look at like the only reason you keep a secret from anybody from your loved ones is to not let them get hurt by it. Yeah. Right. Like, or even strangers, like the reason you keep secrets is to maintain an advantage or not hurt your loved ones. So they're keeping everything in secret. They're going to tell us it's coming.
Yeah.
What was that called? I can't look it up right now. It was like there's an act, and they said that the United States is going to get eminent domain over anybody that has contact with alien biological or technological property. Like this isn't an act that's on the Capitol Hill right now. It's got bipartisan support. It's going to get passed. In a clause in it, I can read it to you. I got it right here. Hang on.
Go for it.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, this came out like today. So I got to dig this up. The proposed act also asserts eminent domain, which gives the federal government the power to remove ET tech. This is not. So this is Congress. This is like the bill. This is the exact verbatim. It gives government the power to remove ET tech and life from any individual or entity, e.g. corporation, states, that has not been properly disclosed, being handled, etc. Section 10, paragraph A, the federal government shall exercise eminent domain over any and all recovered technologies of unknown origin, biological evidence of non-human intelligence that may be controlled by private persons or entities in the interest of the public good. So this hit the hot off the press. This is today, and they're going to vote on this. And this is I forget what the rest of the act is called. Sorry, guys, I'm looking it up.
You good?
The UFO Disclosure Act. So go ahead and check that out. Anybody that's listening, it's called the UFO Disclosure Act. So we're living in the wildest times that ever were. If they're going to tell us this stuff, like you guys. I'd hate to be. I'd hate for the cryptid and the UFO community for everybody to be put out of business and have to morph into something else because they just tell us. Because here we are. One day they're all standing on TV with Mothman and the Greys and Bigfoot.
I'll actually, to me, I'll actually be happy, and then I'll look at all the people that have given me crap over the years and be like, "Told you, dog."
Told you so. That's the biggest "told you so" ever. I'll tell you what. I got a lot of family that I kind of lost after I went public. I got a lot of friends from school. They don't want to talk to. I'm not invited to the barbecue anymore, man, because they don't believe it. And there's definitely a huge price to pay going public with this info. There has been a big price, and but it would bother me if they disclose and then people pop up out of nowhere like they're the experts and they tell it back a lot. We're going to get a bunch of lipstick on the pig. They're not going to tell us about slavery. So it's going to be a sanitized version for sure. But there's a lot of.
Well, they're definitely going to let out bits and pieces to the public, only what they want to hear, and that's just
Well, I'll tell you the other thing is here's my thing to watch for.
Dress it up.
Here's my thing to watch for in a disclosure. Are they going to tell us about the advanced ETs? So there are ETs out there. We were aware. The Ceres Colony Corp, they were basically, like I said, the Germans or Deutsch, whatever, the Ceres Colony Corporation. They had people listed in categories, and I don't have them all off the top of basically subhuman, human, uberhuman, ultrahuman, metahuman, and then it went into something that went into a different class above that. So what I'm saying is there was like 7 or 8 above us that it was based, and the main benchmark for conscious life was the amount of data that we could tell another person. So we have 200,000 words. That makes us humans. So if it's a plant that can say 200,000 words, then it's a person. It's classified as basically a person. So, but there are ETs out there that have millions of words, and there is different levels of telepathy. So imagine if we have telepathy, we still only use 200,000 words or 150,000 words. So it's not a lot. But if we imagine we had telepathy and we could send a picture, I could show you pictures. Like, this is what my house looks like, and should put the picture in your mind. So now there's data. So the level of telepathy is also different. And there are ETs that can give you a lifetime in telepathy in a second. They can tell you 10 years of boom of a download. And there are ETs that don't need technology. At a certain level, they don't need a spaceship to move around, and they can manipulate. They can turn an apple into a banana, or a remote control into an apple. They could manipulate matter. And so, are they going to tell us that in disclosure? Is my big question, because people will start to go, wait a minute, what else are they like? If they can do that, then how did they get there? We're going to aspire to be like them. Right now, who are we aspiring to be like? You get what I'm saying? Like, really nobody. So if we get a disclosure like that, it's going to be a big deal. And if they really come clean and show us what reality is really made of, that we're really not the top of the food chain.
Like I said, I think they're going to give us bits and pieces. If they give everybody flat out the whole truth and the whole thing, there's going to be like chaos. People are going to be like blowing their brains out. Like people are going to go crazy. It's going to be mass hysteria.
A lot of people are in bad shape, man. Let's face it. There's a lot of people that have a lot of trauma. Like, I think everybody.
And only that, the whole thing, like, I think the whole economics is going to change after that. Like, why are we even working then?
Right.
You know?
Well, you know what happened is we're going to start getting technology that will relieve the pain. of the finances. Like you have to pay for the electric bill and your phone bill and all that. Like we'll start to get technologies that give us freebies, and they'll wean us. The economy will wean down, but we'll always be, you know what I mean, probably working. But, you know, there's got to be a way to feed ambition.
Yeah.
If everything was free, there'd still be that guy that still wants to own everything, and there'll still be people that don't give a shit. And so that'll be the same way. You know, like if ambition is never going to go away. It's a good thing, I think. Greed is good. No. Don't quote me on that.
Depends on what it is.
Yeah, don't quote me on that. I'm just trying to make a joke.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So anyhow,
Yeah, I always felt there'll be some form of credit or something.
well, so there was money on Series colonies. They had facial recognition. So imagine your bank account, and everywhere you went to the machine, imagine going to the checkout counter, and just it would take a picture of your face and deduct your account.
Yeah.
So they had that tech. Yeah, they had that tech.
It kind of seems like they're almost on their way because like in Japan and China, they're already, you can actually walk through and then, or like your phone, scan it and it'll take it out of your account or whatever. They're slowly heading that way.
The digital currency is going to be good, you know, a double-edged sword. Like I would be okay with it if I could trust our government better. If they were more, if they behaved like adults, then it would be okay. You know what I'm saying? Like if they kind of put a lasso around our freedoms and they were behaved, if they treated us, you know what I'm saying, like at a certain with a certain level of respect, because we are paying their bills. If they treated us, then I would be cool with it. But really, the idea of what we've seen is that the people that want to be in charge don't deserve to be in charge.
You're 100% right on that. You're damn right on that.
So that's the deal. So the people that are in charge are going to have to somehow be reined in. I'm an optimist. I always talk about doom and gloom stuff, but I am an optimist. I think everything's going to be okay. Like after all that I went through, that was rough. You know, life turned out to be worth living for me. Yeah. You know, like there was a lot of times when, especially, you know, in my teen years, like I said, when I was very angry and and I didn't know what I went through or why I felt the way I did. You know, I never really entertained suicide or anything like that. Like, you know, it did cross my mind, but I lived a miserable youth, and life turned out okay. I think our situation is going to turn out okay. So it's not if, it's when. We kind of already have it. We already have it made, kind of.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, well, that's a good outlook, Tony. Definitely good outlook, man. Yeah, you can always ask Zook. I'm the type of guy, you know, that always prepares for the worst but hopes for the best.
That's the only way to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, but yeah, man.
So well, I know backtracking a little bit.
There's he. Go.
Like I would recommend this book. I was telling Drew about this book, but it's called Fruit from a Poisonous Tree. I highly recommend it. And it's of a man. Anybody can do this, but you can separate yourself from the business of the government, since it is ran like a business, and there are a lot of benefits. But I'm not too far into it. But yeah, I believe like you trademark your name and stuff like that, and you can't be charged tax. And I mean, there are a lot of benefits in doing it, but I don't know what all that entails. Like if there will be issues along the way, but I mean, it is a super in-depth book from a guy who had a really successful job, and he started doing some research. And there's so many things, like even when you go to a car dealership or these places who charge you interest and credit cards, like that's actually illegal. And it's fascinating, like how in depth that book gets. Yeah, and then there was something else I wrote down. Yeah, I forgot because we just talked about so many awesome things.
Yeah. Hey Tony, I forgot, man. What time zone you in, brother?
I'm in Eastern.
Okay, yeah. So it's like pushing pretty damn late for you. Okay, so we'll go ahead and wrap this up. So, but yeah, man, like we said, you know, we appreciate you coming on and sacrificing some time, man. We really do appreciate you.
Yeah, you guys are easy.
Yeah, we're pretty chill. Okay, so basically, yeah, you've already answered the question on the whole cryptids thing, so that's awesome. Where can people buy your book at?
So it's on Amazon. It's Series Colony Cavalier, and both books, and the other one is Project Star Maker, the sequel. You can find all this. You can get a hold of me and everything on TonyRodegez.com. So the way my name is spelled,
Okay.
Tony Rodegez with an S at the end.com. So that's got links to the interviews. It's got links to my Patreon show. I do remote viewing classes.
Yeah, Jessica told me about that.
And I do remote influencing classes, and then I do a show that I put out a couple episodes a month on there. And it's Patreon. It's behind a paywall, so there's no trolls, and there's not a lot of censorship. Like I haven't been. They did kick a couple of my shows off that I was talking about the word, the E word time of day, the election. So those shows got removed, and but I still have a lot of shows on there. You can get a hold of me. You can email me through there. There's links to the books and consultations that I do. So people hear this stuff and they go, "Oh man," some people they go, "Wow," and they never heard it before, and they go, "I think that happened to me," and I get that. I get a couple a week, man. The people it's been upwards of 6 years of 3 a week, so plus a really busy time in the first year of all the time, 5 a day. So it's I figure it's over 2,500 people that have reached out to me that feel that they've been through pretty much the same thing. And I've heard my story's pretty dark and hard to read. I'll tell you, my book's not rated PG. It's difficult to read. But I've heard stories that make mine look tame. So I've heard people that have suffered great things when they are abducted. So that's a reality. It's just like nature. What it is. Nature extends beyond the sky, and you might go up there and you might go into the jungle and see a fluffy thing, and you might see something with fangs, something with claws. You might come across something fluffy or something with claws. Space is the exact same way. So,
I got you, man. Yeah, we'll definitely, Zook will definitely put it in the show notes, and that way people can know where you're at and get your book and all that good stuff. So,
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Definitely, man. Well, we definitely appreciate you taking time out of your day. So I know you're tired, brother. I'm getting there too, man. So, but anyway, Z, that's all I got, man. You got anything, Zick, before we sign off?
Man, I still have like a crap ton of questions, but maybe it'll be like a round two. Because I know it's getting late on that for all of us. Yeah, so I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, we never even got to the second book, which is really unbelievable.
We'll get to that, brother. We'll definitely have you on again for sure, man. Appreciate it.
Really excited.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I didn't know you had a sequel.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And then let me know if I get any real skeptical remarks, any chat stuff. I like talking to people that want to learn and be skeptical. That's cool.
Yeah.
Not people that are mean. So, thanks, guys.
Right on. All right, Tony. Appreciate you. You guys heard it from Tony. You guys heard his website. We're going to have Zia put it in the show notes whenever we drop this episode. So, all right. Love you guys. Be blessed and be careful out there. Tony, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
all right.
see you guys.
We're out. Bam.
Okay.